Okay, our next speaker for our quarterly family forum is Tabitha Stewart, and she's from Acadiana Area Human Services District Waiver Services Program. Tabitha?
Ooh, that don't work. Got some holes in it. Does that work? I guess they can hear. I just start? Okay. Hi, as Jody said, my name is Tabitha Stewart. I work at Acadiana Area. I am one of the two supervisors at our waiver office. Myself and my co-supervisor is Lori Gresham. We supervise and manage our regional waiver programs. We have 4 different waiver programs that we do. We have a supports waiver, we have a children's choice waiver, a row waiver, and a now waiver. For the waiver services, an individual would have already come through our office and been determined eligible to meet the criteria for developmental disability, which I believe my coworker, Kathy Thomas, was in here earlier speaking about the eligibility process. So once someone is determined eligible, they have a statement of approval. If the need is present that they require supports, whether it be in their home, supports to get out and get a job, to access their community, and they need someone to support them to do that, then they can request a SUN screening, which is a screening for urgency of need. If the SUN screening comes back on the 2 priority levels, then the next step is that they will receive a freedom of choice linkage form in the mail in which they choose the support coordination agency that they would like to utilize. The support coordination agency then contacts the family and begins the process of setting up those services, developing with the individual a plan of support, determining what kind of supports they need, if they need in-home services, if they need specialized medical equipment, modifications to their home, if they would like to go to one of the day programs we have in our region, if they would like supported employment to find a competitive job out in the community. We also have skilled nursing services in our now waiver. So some individuals require a higher level of care in which they have anywhere from 8 hours a day to 24 hours a day of skilled nursing. It is a difficult support in our region now because we have a lack of nurses to cover those shifts. All of the services that are provided in the waiver program allow individuals to be as independent as possible. The waiver program was designed to supplement family. So right now we have a lot of people out in the community who live with their family members and their family is providing all of the supports. Well, as we know, family members get older. They're no longer able to provide the same level of supports that they were 20 years ago. So sometimes a person's level of need elevates to needing more in-home supports. So we adjust that as we go. If an individual came through our system maybe years ago, I think right before me was maybe Early Steps that had spoke, and they've aged out of the Early Steps system, so they have a statement of approval that came through our office, but they don't need any services for several years. If the family comes upon a time where there becomes a need for the support, they would just contact our office at 337-262-5610 and request a screening. At that point in time, our state office would assign someone to do a new screening assessment with the individual, and then based on the level of need, would determine if they were offered a waiver at that time. My background for waiver services, I've been with Acadiana Area since 2004. I started on our family support and eligibility side, and I've been with the waiver side since 2005. Prior to coming to work for the state right out of college, I worked for a year in a group home where I was a direct care staff, which gave me a good basis of the level of support that is needed day to day. Growing up, I had an aunt who had a diagnosis of an intellectual disability and epilepsy. Later in life, in her early 20s, she also was in a train accident and was thrown from the vehicle and had the physical support needs later. So growing up, our family, we were all there to support my grandparents and my aunt. But back then, there wasn't the availability of resources for to support them in the home. So we were left as a family to do a lot of those supports ourselves. Whenever her name finally came up for the waiver years ago, she had passed away. So one of the perks and the pluses of our waiver program today is we don't have a waiting list. If a family needs supports, there is a process where they are screened, and if the level of support meets that higher priority level, they're offered a waiver within a matter of months versus 12 years. I think when I first came to the program, our waiting list was 10 to 12 years. So our goal is to make sure that we never get to a point where we have a waiting list again. So in our waiver office, when we're reviewing plans and meeting with individuals, we do go through processes of what we call a bump. So you may have a supports waiver, but you need more supports. So then we go through the process where we review and meet, look at the documentation, and if the need is there, then we have a process where we can bump you to a more appropriate waiver. This was not the case 5 to 10 years ago. But we can bump you up the level to the support need that is needed to remain in the home, because one of the main points of our waiver program is to prevent institutionalization. The SUN process, I don't know, I kind of talked about it a little bit before here. I don't know if Kathy Thomas covered it earlier, but if you don't have a statement of approval, immediately after you come through our office and you're determined, or your child or family member is determined eligible, then you're automatically put on the list and a SUN screening is done. If you already have the statement of approval, and it may have been 3, 4, 5, maybe longer years ago, and you have a need for supports, you can call our number, 262-5610, and request a screening, and they'll put you on the list to have a new screening. The state does do rescreenings every 3 to 4 years, depending on what the level is. But anytime your support needs change, circumstances change, family support changes, you can always call our office and have a screening at that time. I know that's a lot of information, so if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know and I can answer the specific questions. But if you don't have any questions, something comes up later, you think about something, if you send in the questions to this organization, they're going to get it to us and we'll get an answer for you.
Okay, we have a few questions. If you were determined eligible and you had your SUN screening, but you got a lower score, and then something happens and you need services now, what do?
Call our office. You call our office and let them know that the circumstances changed and that your original screening was a lower screening and you'd like to be rescreened. There is no limit on the frequency. So, I mean, you could have been screened 3 months ago. Your situation could have changed yesterday. So it is perfectly okay for you to call our office. When you're actively having the screening, as is with all of our services in the waiver program, if you disagree with the score because you believe that you had a higher level of support need, it is appealable. You can always question it, and they have a review process where it'll be sent up to the next layer, because they record all of their assessment interviews. And so someone else will go in and listen to the conversation, and they may follow up with additional questions. And if they found that something maybe was misinterpreted or it hadn't been discussed, your level may change there. If the level comes back the same, then you have formal appeal rights that you can question and appeal that level.
What is the difference between waiver and EPSDT?
EPSDT services is a Medicaid service. So any child who has Medicaid without ever coming through our waiver door can access EPSDT. That is the child component or the younger adult, because it goes through up to 21 years old. At 21, the Medicaid counterpart to EPSDT becomes long-term PCS services, which is very similar to the EPSDT. It's a staff that comes into the home and provides care in the home. There are differences between EPSDT services, the long-term PCS services for Medicaid, because there are limited things that those workers can do with the individuals while they support them. Whereas with our waiver services, whether it be the Children's Choice Hours, the Road, the Now, or the little bit of habilitation or respite in our supports waiver, our staff have an ability to do more things. One example is medication administration. In our waivers, staff can be trained and certified to administer medications, whether family or parents are present or in the absence of the family. In EPSDT and long-term PCS, the staff cannot administer medicine. And that's just one difference between the two. We do have there is a flyer that gives the difference between waiver services and EPSDT services. I don't have that with me, but we can get that to y'all.
Okay. I received a low score on Sun Assessment and have EPSDT. Can I do another assessment, Sun Assessment, and get waiver and keep EPSDT and have both at the same time?
Yes. EPSDT doesn't matter what waiver you have. You could have a Now waiver and still be eligible for EPSDT. And actually, the way the waiver program works is that you are supposed to access state services first, which EPSDT is considered state services. So even if you had a Now waiver, the expectation would be that you tap into the potential 28 hours a week that EPSDT may pay before our waiver services would come in to fill in the rest of the 24-hour period. Long-term PCS, when someone's older, changes. You cannot have long-term PCS at the same time as our Row waiver and our Now waiver.
If you are a parent and caregiver, your child qualifies for Children's Choice. Can you as a parent be your Children's Choice caretaker?
You can be the caretaker if the criteria is met. The criteria is extraordinary care and best interest. So, for example, some children who are maybe 18 years old, 17 years old, best interest may be determined by the conversation that the support coordinator has with the individual. If the individual doesn't want their mom or dad or sister or brother being staff, then it's not in their best interest. If we have a situation in which the family member has a prior substantiated allegation of abuse, neglect, exploitation, it's not in the best interest and you wouldn't be approved to be the paid staff. Extraordinary care. Extraordinary care for younger children are determined by what you as a parent would have to provide, being paid as a staff. How does that different from what any other parent of any other child the same age provides? So, for example, 10-year-old children. Most 10-year-old children can feed themselves. They can go to the bathroom by themselves. They can do a lot of things independently. But if your child, whether it's due to cognitive or physical limitations, requires for you to feed them, for you to change undergarments, things like that, which is extraordinary, then there is the potential for you to be paid staff. However, before we would go to the family as the paid staff, the next step is, has there been a barrier with the provider agency finding staff to cover those shifts in the home? Or is there a specific reason why you are the better qualified to provide care to your child? It may be specific to certain training that you've had. For example, children who have autism, a lot of families have done training that allows them specifically better qualified to address any type of day-to-day needs or behavioral issues that maybe a typical DSW doesn't have. Then those are all of the things that we look at when determining the extraordinary care and best interest. And family members, despite what waiver, family members in the home are limited to no more than 40 hours. Children's Choice Waiver only has 20 hours, so it doesn't typically become an issue, but there's a 40-hour cap.
Let us know how we can reach out to your office or how we can contact your office.
Our office can be reached at 337-262-5610. That is our front desk. Depending on what you're calling for, like if you already have waiver and you have a specific waiver question, they will usually look up to see if you have a waiver worker that's already assigned. If that worker's not in, they'll get you to their supervisor. Like I said, we have 2 waiver supervisors at our office. If the question is specific to like calling in for a sun screening, they'll route you through our entry and family support side, which are the ones who fill out the request to get a new screening. 262-5610.
Thank you.